Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today I thought we would do Guitars of Instagram. Starting with this one. The Gibson Custom Shop posted an old Flashback Friday of a burled maple top Les Paul. This thing's kind of interesting. I've been on the record many of times saying that I really do not like burl tops. I don't think they're that attractive, because normally they look like this. They're just generally on like shreddy genty guy guitars. And apparently a lot of people like them, and I'm kind of in the minority on these. But I just think it makes the guitar look pimply. But this, it looks like a mosaic, an art piece that somebody's just like painted to look like water lilies or something. This one I actually could get behind. Now, despite the gold hardware, our inlays are trapezoid, so I bet the full photo of this one would actually show us some sort of like a Les Paul reissue, because we have an ABR1 bridge. That would be a strange R9. And it looks like we could just barely see. It might even have a maple neck. Kinda cool. Our next one here, that is one of the more crazier Strats we've seen. I think on my very first crazy modified guitars episode, we had something like this, but everything was like labeled. How many do we got? 4, 5, 6 single coil pickups. It looks like they probably could have managed their way to get at least one more. It looks like 3 5-way toggle switches were installed at one point in time, but maybe they had to just move this one over. But we've got our regular layout here, so volume, tone, tone. But then they added another volume, tone, tone going the opposite way. Okay. And if we look really closely, like these are our basic pickups. They're more of a sharp white color, whereas these ones, they're slightly off-white. So I'm guessing this one would actually control these particular ones, and then this one would control those pickups. And having a 3-way toggle switch, I bet that controls between, either having this set of pickups on, or this set, or potentially both. Man, that's too many tonal opportunities for me. But kind of interesting if you're into Stratocasters. Looks like here we get a Jim Root Stratocaster. I've had a lot of people ask me to review the Jim Root guitars. It's not that I don't want to, it's just, EMGs, they're not necessarily my style, and I don't think I'd be able to do justice to them. But that doesn't mean when I get caught up, I won't do them. Kind of gives me the Tom DeLonge vibes here. Instead of just one pickup, you got 2. They're humbuckers, single volume control, probably a simplified 3-way toggle switch too, I'd bet. Looks like we get the large 70s style headstock. It's a pretty sleek looking Stratocaster. I've just now noticed no fret markers. Kind of cool. Here's a meme that's going around. Saved up for a new guitar for Christmas. This just arrived this morning. But what really hurts about this one is normally it's like a fake Gibson that they'll post these photos of, or it'll be like a modern day guitar that got damaged. But looking at this headstock, that looks like this thing was either late 80s or early 90s, and that hurts to see one of those things broken. Especially because it seems to be really clean otherwise. Now here's an interesting set of guitars. So I think this one was posted kind of back around Christmas time. That's why they're kind of making a Christmas tree shape here. So they've got a traditional Trini Lopez here, which has the Firebird headstock with like a 335-esque body with the diamond-shaped F-holes. But over here, it looks like you get the Dave Grohl 335, which is basically just a take on the Trini Lopez, but modernized. Super popular guitar. And then we move over here. That looks like what do they call them? Like a Firebird Studio T or something like that. I think these things are around like $900 to $1,200 on the used market, but they've got the Pelham Blue there. And then up here, they just have a regular Les Paul Jr. with the Pelham Blue finish. But then over here, we get the Joe Bonamassa Bonabird, which is a Les Paul mixed with a Firebird. Except for this time, the headstock goes the other way. And then up here, that looks like another Dave Grohl. I feel like he should have just had a regular ES335 in his collection up here, like the red topper. But I get what he's going for. This is like the golden star on top of it all. It's kind of hard to point out the odd duck, but I think we just need a regular 335 somewhere in here. Now, as far as PRS guitars go, this thing is fantastic. This one was posted by Ish Guitars. It's a super quilty green. I like the green guitars. The black pickup covers are an interesting choice because it accents the dark portions of the wood. Gives the instrument an evil vibe. Not as big of a fan of this blue one. Still a beautiful guitar though. Oh yeah, maybe it's just the triple pickups with the P90s that I like the best. But that is It's a strange top, but I like it because the water, it's like the waves. This looks like just as you like fall into the water if you were to look up because, you know, the water coming down, but then the rest is kind of just the way it's supposed to be. That's a nice top. And I can't say I care for this one at all. Oh man, people keep sending me this one all the time, so let's go ahead and talk about this. I hate this guitar with a passion. Please stop sending it to me, because it's just a direct rip-off of the Headless SG, except for they didn't do it very well. Which, if you're not familiar with the Headless SG, it's a guitar I reviewed a long time ago. This was a guitar of myths and legend and lore before I actually found it, because until then, this was the only photo that we ever had of this thing. People didn't know if it was real, if it was a Photoshop job, or what. But then I found it and documented it for everyone to see. So what makes the Headless SG so beautiful, in my opinion, is it fixed the broken headstock issue like we were just looking at. So if your headstock breaks off up here, instead of just repairing it like normal and having a weak spot, how about you transpose it into the body where it can never break off again? Now in the Headless SG's case, they just put the Gibson veneer on top of the body and then they routed the tuners in there. So they didn't actually graft the headstock into the body, it just looks like that. There is kind of a nice surprise on the back if you haven't seen that video yet though. The only downside to this is you don't have a very good string angle coming onto your ABR1 bridge, but if you were to install a tailpiece here, that would have helped with that. But this, it just upsets me. It's a copycat and it doesn't even do it well, because you still have the weak point here. You might hit that against something, it's just gonna break again. So this mod gets a 0 out of 10 for copying the Headless SG in a pointless way. But you can kind of see what we were talking about with the Headless SG, using the tailpiece to make the straight string pull here. Now this might just be the photo angle, but it looks like they're collapsing their bridge. Here's a nice J200 from Elderly Instruments. It looks so plain without the really fancy pickguard on it, and this is like a super mustache bridge. You know, the kind that got the curly sides to it? Somebody custom ordered Blueberry Burst on one of the 60th anniversary 59 standards. I mean, we've got tons of Blueberry Bursts, like from Gibson USA, but I think that's the first custom shop I've seen like that. Kind of seems blasphemous to call this a reissue 59 when it has a finish like that, but man, can you imagine if you could find a real burst with this finish? Oh, and you gotta love these old Gibson EB basses, especially when they look like violins. So I always thought they actually had the F-hole, but if you look really closely, they're just painted on. I had some people talking about that because of the Silent Siren I unboxed last night. People didn't like the outline of the F-hole, but they said if they was just completely painted in to make it look real, then they might have liked it. Now this is interesting. I think that's the first Les Paul that's like traditional that I've seen with the forked headstock. Now there's that freaky Carina one that has a really strange layout, but as far as just standard historic reissue stuff, that I like it better than the 50th anniversary Carina things. Those things are just abominations, and I'm normally the type of guy that likes strange guitars, right? Speaking of old Gibson EBs, here's one from the CME Basement. I'd like to try one of these semi-hollow ones. I think that'd be interesting. We get a Stratocaster Elite. What makes these things interesting is you don't actually have a selector system. You just click which ones you want on. So you can actually get your neck and bridge combination using this instead of using like the S1 switch. Honestly, I think the best thing about Instagram from a guitarist standpoint, besides watching people play in unique ways, are the compilation photos here. So we get the Zakk Wylde Vertigo. That is a Gibson USA version. This looks like a 70s or 80s Les Paul Custom in Wine Red. Custom Shop Black Beauty 54 reissue here. I don't like the ones that have Bigsby's. For me, when it comes to the staple pickup customs, it's just gotta be a regular stop bar tailpiece. Unless you're using the dog bone Bigsby. Then okay, I'll let the dog bones slide. Now this is kind of interesting. So I just recently did the review on the Blood Moon Explorer, the vampire one. And right after I made that, I realized around the exact same time, Gibson also did this version. It's a white finish. I believe this one comes stock with a real Floyd Rose instead of the Schaller thing, but it's got the same 84 layout specs to it. So if you don't like the swamp ash body and whatnot, you could choose one of those things. It just looks like a regular 67 style V that somebody might have changed the pickguard on. And of course the classic EDS 1275 double neck. This is pretty cool. This is one of those The SGs from the early 80s. I would guess it's probably an 83 or an 84. It's kind of hard to tell. I think it's gold burst finish though. This is a photo I kind of like too. So I think what they're trying to go off of this one is like the Neil Sean style, because his had two little switches down here like that as well, but double Kahlers. I don't think a Kahler's ever looked as good as it does with 3 uncovered pickups. Here's a nice compilation of weirdos. The Explorer, Modern. They're just kind of missing the Futura Explorer in here, but instead they swapped in a reverse flying V. Man, so many people hate those things and like send me messages telling me to review one. I have actually already reviewed one of those. I think I've owned like 2 or 3 of them. I need to get one in for like a modern day review and demo, but I remember thoroughly enjoying the thing. They look very uncomfortable and untraditional, but let me tell you, when you sit down and play one of those things, they're comfortable. It's just like any guitar that has like an extended reach up here that just kind of rests against your chest. Don't hate on reverse flying Vs until you actually sit down and try one. And I'm not talking try one at a guitar store. Like, I'm talking actually own one and play it for an extended period of time. I guarantee you will warm up to the idea of those freaky things. And to end things off, I actually want to take a look at this that was posted on Cesar's page today. So he described this as a Les Paul Super Special 1-of-1 by Artisan Luthier Scala Guitars. I've definitely heard of this brand before. For some reason, I was thinking that was one of the like authorized builders of Gibson guitars. They could actually license out the shapes, and maybe that is it, but I couldn't find the information here. But they kind of create interesting guitars all on their own. But seeing this particular aging style on an actual Gibson guitar, you know, if they're going to continue to do relic jobs and stuff, I think they should just outsource all the work to this guy, because this actually looks natural. Like, maybe it's a little bit too over the top, but it kind of makes these modernized double cut specials, you know, with the humbuckers and all the different knobs and whatnot. It makes it look right. Like this was actually an old guitar that's just been modified into being like this. I mean, nothing against the guys that work in the Murphy Labs division, but some of those aging jobs, they're just not quite cutting it yet. And I think they're still kind of trying to find their stride as to what is good. But this Super Special, I think they're getting, you know, more so towards the right direction here. Now, unfortunately, there's really no story behind this. Like, is Gibson actually doing this, or did Cesar just send this guitar off to them to get it all reliced and aged and whatnot? I just thought this was a really fascinating example right here. Alright, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed checking out some Instagram guitars with me today, and we will see you tomorrow with a very special episode of the Trogly's Guitar Show. Take care.